Well, guys, we are going to finally get this out of the way. Now, I did a lot of testing. Oh, what did I do here? Why is it? I have done something that I don't understand. We're going to take a look at two different versions of the same knife, one in serrated, one in plain edge. We're going to see how one performs and one, see if we can pick one that might be better. So, yeah, let's get into that. But first, here comes a little bit of a logo. So guys, I've always wanted to do a video where we compared two knives, one serrated, one just like straight edge or plain edge, and since these are Spyderco's patented, trademarked straight edge, but I wanted to do it in a fashion that there was very little variance. So what we've got here is two versions of the same knife. And even in the same steel. This is in VG10, this is in VG10. The only difference is this knife is a good bit older. This is around a 2000-ish, 1999, 2000 to 2004-ish from what I could tell, because it is only got the one point, which I verified that this is an actual Spyderco with Spyderco because I had some questions because it looked different. But the only difference between these two knives is the edge configuration. And I've always wanted to do that. So we're going to do a bunch of testing. We're going to go out, we're going to cut cardboard, we're going to cut wood, we're going to cut paper, and we're going to see how do they perform in each one of those. Is a plain edge better? Now, I do know there are some things that absolutely a plain edge is better at for detail cutting, but we're going to talk about that on the backside. And then there are some things that this absolutely does do better. And so we'll talk about that at the end. So we're going to adjourn from here and we're going to go out on this beautiful Southern California day and do a little bit of cut testing with these two knives. So let's head out there now. Well, like I said, we're going to test both of these knives a couple different ways. This is the plain edge. We're going to cut some cardboard and we're going to do a paper cut test. So I'm probably going to fast forward a little bit of this because the other things I want to talk about, we're going to talk about at the tabletop. So let's go ahead and just get started. I didn't have enough cardboard, so I am sacrificing some shipping packages. So plain edge first, as you can see, screams through it. This is very, very keen edge. This knife, even though it's a little bit thick, still cuts pretty well. So no problem there. Let's compare it to this one, which also cuts really well. So if you're doing cutting cardboard, things like that, these serrations are not an impedance. They are very good. When we get to some of the other stuff, you'll start to see. So we're gonna go back and forth. I'm gonna cut all this cardboard up because it needs to go in my recycling bin anyway, so. So far, what I noticed is that the serrated version does really, really well on the cardboard and actually does better on cardboard that might have some adhesive. We're going to do a paper cut test because, you know, paper cut, that's how you're going to tell how delicate an edge is, how fine it's going to cut and things like that. So this has been my question, and I always wanted to have two knives that I could compare side by side. Are the serrations better or are they worse? So far, it's pretty much even. There were some things that the serrated cut through some of the like more dense, thin, not corrugated. It seemed like it cut through that a little bit better, but I think that's because it basically has a chisel edge and it's scalloped out. So let's go ahead and I've got some newspaper. We're gonna do some newspaper cut test. And then we'll go back inside and do a little bit more stuff. I get these flyers like several times a week. Now I will say that did not cut. This is an actual test. That was serrated. It did not do well on the, well, I guess this one didn't either. Surprisingly, the cellophane style wrap is kind of difficult to cut with a knife. It's very, very wear resistant. I don't know if you've ever tried to cut saran wrap with your knife. So I'm gonna take page 1 of the Food for Less. So this had some adhesive on it, but see, nice clean cut. I'm probably gonna clean these up first. I'm gonna clean these blades up and then we'll restart. If you've ever done a lot of paper cut tests, you know that if you've got adhesive on your blade, it has a tendency to affect it. So just to give them the fairest of chances, we have removed any adhesive, and as you can see, nice, clean. That's the plain edge. Ooh, it is warm out here today, and this is the serrated. So there you can see, like if you're doing fine detail cutting, it is not as good. It has a tendency to tear and rip, and you can see what I'm saying. These are the cuts from the plain edge. This was my initial cut from that serrated. You can, if you just get it started in there, get it to start, but it has a tendency to want to rip and tear. Not as good for fine detail cutting. And then there's one last test I want to run through, which is kind of like a feather stick wood cut test. I have a wooden dowel in a house. It's basically a broomstick that I use to test things like that and feel the comfort of knives. So let's go ahead and re-adjourn back in the studio. So another test that I find really useful, and I do it a lot, is doing some cutting on wood. Now this is just a broomstick. A lot of times I'll try and find like an oak dowel this size, but oak's expensive, so this is just a broomstick, and it's probably the third of these that I've went through. I had an old mop. So one of the things that I like to do with this, because it's going to give you some good feel of how comfortable that knife is to do some of these cut tests where you have to bear down pretty hard. So feather sticking or detail cutting, or how do you cut wood with it, is a valuable one. Now I'm curious about, with these serrations, how well it's going to work, and it seems to be working fairly well, and there's not a lot of effort, and all I'm doing is I'm just bringing up a little bit of material, but it's not as clean, and it looks like it's trying to break off. With a straight edge knife, you can see here, let's look in on this quick and kind of close. See how that's not such a clean cut as you would get with the straight edge version of the knife, which I happen to have in my pocket. So I'm not seeing a lot of big issues. Now, if you're doing, like I said, with the paper, if you're doing fine detail cutting, your serrations aren't going to be great. This is giving me a much cleaner ability to do a little bit of small little layers and bring that up for like a feather stick. I will say it requires a good bit more effort, but my cuts are cleaner. They're nice and smoother. They're not cracking and breaking. So with the wood cutting, it has to be the fact that you've got multiple edges. You've maximized your edge ability, just like a recurve. So with the serrations, you're maximizing that cutting surface on that knife. So the serrations, I think, do not really detract from the detrimental thing of what you're doing. Now, I will say there are some other things that I've done with serrated knives, and I've tested with serrated knives, and I find them a little worse at certain tasks. We saw the paper cut test. These are great for cutting line. If you're trying to do fine detail cutting, they're not. These are like a very coarse saw. I'm not a big fan of the cuts you get from a serrated knife. And then the flip side of that is, if you look at how these serrations are, and we're going to turn this around in a second and go back to the tabletop, they're basically all cut the opposite direction I would want them, because of they're basically cut left-handed. So it's not something I would take. Now, do they cut really well? Yes. And Spyderco does have some of the best serrations on the market. They're not too fine. They're not too tight. They're not too tightly bound where you get like a bunch of material bound up in them. They do a very good job. As a defensive weapon, serrations would be the way to go. For day-to-day use, not gonna say that I really like them, but This just proves that pretty much most of the things that you can do or would do with a plain edge knife can be done with a modicum of success with a serrated blade. So we're not going to do any more testing because this video is going to be long anyway, because I want to talk about the differences in knives and how serrations are actually done and all that stuff. So, you know, I already shot some of that, and we're going to shoot some of the back at the tabletop. But yeah, overall, I mean, if you like serrations, that's fine. I just find that they limit some of the things. They're very one-sided, and there's some other points I'll get to when we turn around. So let's re-adjourn back to the tabletop. So back here at the table. So what have I found? Well, I have found, and I'm kind of surprised because I've never really done a head-to-head comparison like this. The cardboard cutting, this thing performed very well with the serrations, but so did this one. Now, I will say that I think you get some performance enhancement with heavier stuff like cardboard and on the wood like you saw, because what you have is, just like a recurve blade, each one of these serrations gives you more cutting potential. You have more cutting surface because it's like having a bunch of little recurves. There are other serrations, there are other companies that do serrations I don't like as much. Spyderco's serrations are actually really good. They're well done and they're not too tightly bound. But I will say, I still prefer this over this. Now, if you're cutting line and things like this, this is a workhorse. But when you get into doing detail cutting work, this just does not do as well. It doesn't leave you as fine a cut. A lot of times there's a lot of ripping and tearing of material, especially if you're cutting something you want to be really fine. And the other final issue with serrated, this is a very easy, straightforward sharpening on this. The chicken is watching. But this requires specific tools to maintain that edge, and then they're always chisel ground, and they don't typically cut very well at the very tip here. So am I still not a fan of serrations? No, I'm not really a big fan of serrations. They do have their places. If you cut a lot of line and things like that, for a mariner's knife, things like that, this will definitely have cutting horsepower that you want. If that's something you do on a daily basis, absolutely look into serrated knives. For your day-to-day user, as far as ease of use, maintenance, and the fact is, if you pull this out, well, I mean, if you pull either one of these knives out in public, it looks aggressive. But if you pull this out in public, it looks even more so, because serrations have got a very ominous appearance. And so I would say, is one better than the other? In my opinion, yes. But your opinion may vary, and your mileage may vary. This may be a knife that fits your purposes better. If you are a first responder, cutting a seatbelt, cutting nylon rigging or something that somebody's bound up in, probably this would be the way to go. There's a reason that a lot of first responder knives are fully serrated, because that's something. Cutting a seatbelt with this is going to be a piece of cake. So there we go, guys. That's it on this one. Let's turn this around. I have a couple little final thoughts, and we'll send you out about your day. So there we go, guys. Serrated bladed knives. If you like them, that's fine. I'm just saying that they are not my first choice, my go-to when I'm looking for a knife. I feel as though they definitely, I mentioned it at the tabletop, they definitely make sharpening much more problematic and things like that. So I think that if you've got a good coursed edge on a knife, you're going to do every bit as good. I will say there are some things that they truly excel at, such as cutting line, whether it's nylon line or cotton line. I wanted to do some testing. I just don't have any actual line here that I wanted to cut up. So, but where they are kind of limited, I talked about at the tabletop. So guys, that's it on this one. If you like the videos, give them a thumbs up. If you don't like them, give them a thumbs down, but please try to tell me why. I can't change the content if you don't tell me what you don't like. If you want to support the channel, it's as simple as like, share, subscribe, drop a comment, hit the bell icon. I don't think I said it in this one. But there are a lot of ways, I don't think I said it mid-roll, there's a lot of ways you can support the channel financially as well. There are a bunch of affiliate links down below. This channel is self-sponsored. I use those affiliate links to help offset some of the cost of the things that I use to film on the channel and pay some of the bills. So anything you purchase with those affiliate links is greatly appreciated, and it doesn't have to be the item you clicked on. Anything on those Amazon links goes to support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything extra at checkout. I do have a membership where I do exclusive content for some of the paying members, but everyone saves $5 off my sharpening service. Everyone has access to my Gilded server. Premium and baseline tier members are entered into giveaways that I do on the Gilded server that is specifically for them, and premium tier members have access to a sharpening tutorial series right here on YouTube that I've set up for them. The final way is I have a merchandise store. This is not the merchandise. It's much better than this. This is an antique, if you would. But I've set up a coupon code that works anywhere on Ember Shirt Co, where my merchandise store is, and that coupon code will save you 10% at checkout. That coupon code is CrazySharp, capital C, capital S, CrazySharp, all one word. If you send me pictures of you wearing my merchandise, I will put them in the outro of a video. Guys, that's it. I love you all. Keep it clean in the comments section. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. And I will see you in the next video.